Welcome back. The chaos in Iowa is getting worse. The chair of the Democratic National Committee is now calling essentially for a recount. Tom Perez tweeted yesterday out, quote, "Enough is enough in light of the problems that have emerged in the implementation of the delegate selection plan, and in order to assure public confidence in the results, I'm calling on the Iowa Democratic Party to immediately begin a recanvass." The only problem, Perez doesn't have the authority to call for a recanvassing, and both Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders and former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg have already declared victory. Watch this.
I'm confident that we're going to do really well here in New Hampshire, having won Iowa.
It has been an extraordinary week, and we are absolutely electrified by the energy that we are coming here with and by the extraordinary validation of this campaign's vision that we had in Iowa on Monday.
Joining us now is Chris Wilson, political pollster and CEO of WPAi Intelligence. Chris, it took 3 days for the Iowa Democratic Party to finally come up with the results. Now you have both Sanders and Buttigieg declaring victory as the chair of the DNC is calling for a recanvassing. Conspiracy theorists are running wild with the situation. So what's your take?
Well, we may never know who won Iowa is what it gets down to. And it's been confirmed that the Iowa Democratic Party didn't know that Perez, the DNC chairman, was going to call for a recanvass. So the fight that's going on in their house right now has got to be something, you want to pick some popcorn up and just start watching from the sidelines. But I will say, coming out of it, Pete Buttigieg clearly got a bump. And in fact, I think a lot of the models that look at who has the greatest opportunity for victory in New Hampshire and moving on underestimate it, because even though many of the canvases show that Sanders may have won, Buttigieg is really getting all the press attention out of it. And that's really what matters out of Iowa. It's not necessarily the delegates. Those are helpful. But what's the most important is the attention you get, the impact it has on your donors and the earned media. And so the two big losers coming out of that are really Biden and Warren. And so Warren has started to nosedive. And so now she goes into New Hampshire and isn't able to rebuild it and ends up in a third or fourth place finish there. Really, if she's not able to win in New Hampshire, a neighboring state, I think her campaign is over. So you've got a whole lot of machinations that are going to go on here within the next couple of weeks. And then the biggest loser from all of it is Joe Biden. He came in fourth. I mean, for a little while, it looked like he and Klobuchar we're fighting it out for fifth, and he's now in fourth place in most polling in New Hampshire. We haven't seen any polling out of South Carolina in a long time. If he loses South Carolina, his campaign is over. But it could be over before that, because he's already having to fire staff. He's already having to change ad strategy, and worst of all, he's having to. His money is drying up. He was already doing a poor job raising money, but now they're admitting that the bump they thought they were going to get out of Iowa is completely done. And so he's having to cancel ad buys to move his ad dollars around. And when you see that, that's when the signs that a campaign for president is on life support.
So looking ahead to the debate tonight, how can these people, Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, and Amy Klobuchar, really stand out to compete against Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders?
It's a great question. I think it's going to be the first debate that I'll actually enjoy watching, because most of them have been love fests. Outside of the fight between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, that was about as exciting as two geriatrics fighting over the last piece of lime Jello at the buffet line. Tonight's going to be a little bit more of a back and forth, because these people know that this is their last chance. If Elizabeth Warren doesn't take out Sanders for that far left side of the party, then she's probably done after New Hampshire. And if Joe Biden doesn't take out Buttigieg, he's going to lose that moderate lane. And bear in mind, when I say moderate in the Democratic Party, it's not moderate. It's still far left. It's just not as far left as the socialist lane. And so they're going to be fighting it out. And that's where you're really going to see kind of the entertainment value that exists. And to some extent, even though I joke about it, that's good for them as candidates, because I'll tell you, there is a reason why the Republican debates in 2016 were must-see TV. And I worked for Ted Cruz in that. He was a world champion debater. But the people tuned in to watch Donald Trump because they didn't know what he was going to do. He was unpredictable, and it made it like reality television. And that's what tonight's debate's going to be like. And I would advise your viewers to tune in, because I think it's going to be entertaining.
It will, definitely. Now, we want to switch gears a little bit. Pete Buttigieg has faced a lot of heat on the campaign over his stance on abortion, specifically late-term abortion. He got into a heated exchange about it on The View yesterday. Let's listen to what he said and get your response after this.
Point is that it shouldn't be up to a government official to draw the line. It should be up to the woman who's confronted with the choice.
So if a woman wanted to, I don't know, invoke infanticide after a baby was born, you'd be comfortable
Does anybody
with that?
seriously think that's what these cases are about?
Think
about the
people pushing for
situation.
that, yes.
If this is a late-term situation, then by definition, it's one where a woman was expecting to carry the pregnancy to term. Then she gets the most perhaps devastating news of her life. We're talking about families that may have picked out a name, maybe assembling a crib, and they learn something excruciating and are faced with this terrible choice. And I don't know what to tell them morally about what they should do. I just know that I trust her, and her decision, medically or morally, isn't going to be any better because the government is commanding her to do it in a certain way.
I respect it.
Chris, this is a big topic of debate looking into the 2020 election. How do you think Mayor Pete handled the question?
Well, for his audience, he probably handled it the right way. You heard the View audience there cheering him on as he talks about killing babies in the 8th and 9th month. But the fact is that the statistics don't uphold what he is saying. In fact, less than 20% of late-term abortions are for some sort of illness or parent finds out the child has Down syndrome, is disabled. And candidly, I find that equally repugnant to imply that because a family learns that a child is disabled or has Down syndrome that they should be aborted is I know lots of families, I know lots of kids that have Down syndrome or are disabled, and they live very productive lives and are happy to be alive. And so it shows just how far. I remember earlier I described him as moderate and said when I talk about the Democrats as moderate, it's still far left. That answer is a perfect example of that. That is where maybe 15% of the U.S. population is. And he is appealing to a very far left constituency of the American public to try and win a nomination. And one, I think morally it's despicable, but from a electoral standpoint, it is also a bad decision because when he has to own that position in the general election, it's going to come back and haunt him because he has pushed himself so far left on this issue, on the issue of abortion and life, that he's going to have trouble clawing himself back out of that hole.
A very divisive issue there. Chris Wilson, he's political pollster and CEO of WPAi Intelligence. Thanks so much.